If you are a graphic designer who wants to master branding and make money while doing it, and especially if you want to work as a freelance brand designer, this video is for you. Now today we are going to talk about the 4 levels of brand design. By the end of this video, you should be able to understand branding on a deeper level, not only from the perspective of a graphic designer, but from the perspective of the client as well. This will help you be a more empathetic designer. You'll be able to deliver a better product, charge more money, and work faster if you can understand the concept of these 4 levels of brand design. You have probably not heard of this. This is a framework of my own devising, but it is something that I have picked up working as a brand designer, and especially working as a freelance brand designer, trying to really understand the needs of clients. Jumping right into it, the 4 levels of design are as follows. Number 1, logo stamping. Number 2, the branding Trinity. Number 3, the kitchen sink. And number 4 is what I like to call variable brand systems. Now, if this seems overwhelming, if it seems like a lot, don't worry. I'm going to break down each one of these, what it entails exactly, and who is the perfect client for each level of branding. Let's jump right into it with level 1, logo stamping. Let's start this one off with a couple expectations. An iconic logo is important, but a logo is not a brand. And just as a bonus expectation, I say branding, and I know if you're real heady about it, you're going to be like, well, branding is... I'm actually talking about visual identity. But at the beginning of this video, I talked about being more empathetic towards clients, and not once have I ever had a client come to me and say, I need some visual identity work done. The client refers to it as branding. As a graphic designer, I am a service provider, providing a service to the client, so I will speak the language of the client. I'm just going to call it branding, but no, for the design community, I'm really talking about visual identity. Okay, so what is logo stamping? It is branding that starts and ends with a logo. Put it on a hat, put it on a polo shirt, a business card, put it on a water bottle. It is super easy, super simple, and that is the beauty of it. Now, with this level of designing, the most important thing is making a good logo. And you might ask yourself, what constitutes a good logo? Each designer has their own opinion. I can make a whole separate video on what is a good logo, but for now, know that a good logo is well drawn, it is appropriate, and it is memorable. If you can nail those 3 things, you got a good logo on your hands. When is it appropriate to design for somebody just a logo and call that branding? No colors, no fonts, no nothing, just a logo. In order to understand this, you need to ask yourself 3 questions about the client. Who, what, and where? I'm talking about who will be using the logo, what is the budget of the client, and where is the logo going to live? Now I'm going to hit you with a story that answers these 3 questions and explains who the ideal client is for the logo stamping brand treatment. Scene. You have an Aunt Jody. She lives in a small town. She has lived in all of her life, and she is going to start a business as an electrician. Jody is not a designer, nor does she ever plan on hiring any designers for her business, apart from asking you, her niece or nephew, on occasion to do a little something. She needs a business card, she's gonna put the logo on a hat, maybe a polo shirt, and she's gonna wrap her car with the logo because that's a tax write-off. By the way, I am not an accountant, and that is not legal advice. When you ask Jody what makes her business special, why does she stand out from the crowd, she says that the only other electrician in town is Michael, and Michael does shoddy electrician work and doesn't pay his employees enough. Right? She has essentially no other competition in town, and the reason that she'll stand out is because people know her in her small town, and she is simply another option that is not Mike, who overcharges, does shoddy work, and doesn't treat his employees well. I'm assuming Jody used to work for shoddy Mike. But I digress. The last thing Jody says that her budget, she just will give you $200 to do it. Jody is the perfect fit for logo stamp branding. She doesn't want to work with other designers. She just wants to send a PNG file to the hat or shirt or car wrap company and be done with it. To her, blue is blue is blue, so colors doesn't matter. She's not really going to stick to a typeface. And besides, it's unimportant. People are going to hire Jody as an electrician because they know and love Jody, and she is one of two options in town. Quite frankly, branding is not super important for her when it comes to visual identity. She just needs a logo to put it on stuff. Moving on to level 2, the brand Trinity. Here I am talking about logo, colors, and typefaces. Simple, easy, a beautiful thing. It's not the end all, but it's a fine place to be because many an entrepreneur, a side hustler, a first-time business person, this is exactly where they want to be. Most people nowadays are aware of the design around them and they appreciate the importance of design to a certain extent. So if you give this trinity of branding, this toolkit to a first-time entrepreneur, you're giving them something that they can work with that generally they will find empowering without being overwhelmed by the nuance and the this and that of design. Super simple, super punchy, logo, font, color is going to be perfect for a large demographic of clients. Within the umbrella of the trinity of branding, there is a little bit of wiggle room. Maybe instead of just giving someone one logo, you give them options of this is your logo word mark and this is your icon. Use them appropriately. Maybe you give them not only the colors, but a percentage of color. Use, 60% of the time use color 1, 30% of the time use color 2, and 10% of the time use color 3. Maybe you give them a typeface for display and a typeface for body copy. Really, the choice is yours depending on the needs of your client and how you like to work as a designer. But again, the focus here is on simplicity, only giving the client a toolkit that will empower them without overwhelming them. Here is an example of the perfect client fit for this trinity of branding. Let's call her Hannah. She's your best friend's wife. She just graduated from esthetician school. She is design-minded. She has opinions. She can use Canva, and she's starting her skincare service business as kind of a jumping off point to achieving her dream of one day owning her own line of skincare products. Hannah is going to get her clients mainly through social media, but also she'll need a business card and she'll have just a simple website. So remember, can you answer who, what, and where? Hannah will just be using this branding herself on Canva, so specific colors, couple of fonts, and a logo should give her a nice toolkit without overwhelming her. Her budget, she's hitting you with $800, which isn't bad. Fonts and colors isn't that much more work than just a logo, so okay. and then where this will live, her social media, her business cards, her website. Hopefully in the future down the line, if we're thinking forward, she's going to put it on her own products, and that is that. The perfect fit for the branding Trinity. As a side note here, once Hannah does get to the point of wanting to create her own products, you're probably going to want to revisit and move up a level on the branding levels to the kitchen sink. Hopefully at that point she'll have a bit more of a budget and she'll want a more nuanced design system that can apply not only across social media and a website and a card, but also into products and advertising. Now that brings us to level 3, the kitchen sink. The kitchen sink, it's kind of like the Trinity of branding, but just more. You have logo, typeface, colors, but you also have a laundry list of other things you can choose from. I'm talking about illustration style, patterns, motion. I'm talking about maybe materials if they're making physical goods, sounds, perhaps a set of icons they use throughout their branding. Basically, you have this list and you choose what are appropriate things to include in their branding kit. For this level of branding, the budget is going to jump up significantly. So you're going to need to find a client who has a couple thousand or more than a couple $1,000s to spend on branding. You need to find somebody who appreciates, understands, and respects design enough to give it a good budget and to hire a good designer. The client also will need to understand the market they are in. They need to understand deeply who their target audience is. They need to understand the competitive landscape. What are companies similar to them doing and how can they stand out? They need to know who they're talking to, what are they saying. They need to know why somebody would specifically pick them out of a crowd of 100 other people in their same industry. And by extension, you as the designer should also understand these things. You can't really design effectively if you don't know who you're talking to and what you are saying to them. With this level of branding, it is going to be wise to also set up a period of discovery. Maybe it's a couple days, maybe it is a couple weeks, depending on the client. In this discovery phase, this is where you work with them and you do your own independent research to find out, to really discover the landscape in which you will be operating. You need to understand, as I said before, who this brand's target audience is and what this brand is offering them. You are going to realize that it is much more complex than simply giving somebody a logo, some colors, and a typeface. You have to be able to understand more complex systems and synthesize them into a singular visual representation. When it comes to budget, when it comes to how you as a graphic designer are going to price this, there are a couple different schools of thought. Starting out, you might want to price according to your time. Hopefully, at this point, when you get into this level of design work, you should understand how fast you work and what it might take to put into a project to make it happen. And then you might charge hourly. Let's say, for example, you know this project is going to take you 100 hours and 3 weeks to complete. So you, as a graphic designer, maybe you decide that it's worth your time to charge $100 an hour. The project is 100 hours. You make $10,000 in 3 weeks, which will probably turn into a month or a month and a half, as these things tend to do. And if you're happy with that as a designer, then you can price according to your time and what would make you happy to work for a week, for a month. Do you want to make $10,000 a month? Do you want to make 20? Do you want to make 5? Price yourself according. The second school of thought when it comes to pricing on this level is called value-based pricing. It essentially means that you charge according to the value that the company will receive for your design service. As an example, let's say that you design a journal for a company. This company is going to make 1,000 of these journals and sell them each for $10. They stand to make $10,000 off these journals. So maybe they'll pay you as a designer $1,000. Now, if that same company was going to make 10,000 planners and sell them for $20 a piece, suddenly they stand to make $200,000 as opposed to $10,000. So they would be more willing to pay you as a designer, let's say $10,000 instead of $1,000. They're paying you much more for the same amount of work, but they are going to be receiving much more value for the work that you provided. Now that we have addressed the who and the what, let's address the where. A company like this at this scale is going to have a lot of applications for their branding. It's going to be on social media, a website, in the physical world, in advertising. So you need to think about physically where is this going to exist. But not only that, if you are going to be charging more money for this, delivering a better product, you need to think about where metaphysically this will exist. Where is this brand going in the future? What are their goals in 5 years, in 10 years, in 20 years? You need to understand where they're going so that you can design for them a brand system that will be able to grow and expand as the company reaches new benchmarks. You don't want to have the company rebrand 3, 4, 5 years down the road because you didn't consider them growing with their brand. Now at this point you might be thinking, that sounds like it all. What the heck is level 4? And let me tell you this, if you went to a good design school, this is probably as far as you've understood branding. In fact, I've worked with a lot of design studios in New York, in London, in Portland, and all these places, and often this is as far as they go, even with the biggest of clients. So level 4 isn't necessarily a better tier of design as 1, 2, and 3 will cover 95% of the audience. Now, with that mindset, let's talk about number 4, variable brand systems. 4 variable brand systems take everything we learned up until this point about the kitchen sink, about your logos, fonts, colors, patterns, motion, scent, sound, illustration, photography, all of that, composition, that was important. And now take all that menu, put it on a sliding scale, and give it a guiding principle. Let me say that one more time. Take the kitchen sink, put it on a sliding scale, and give it a guiding principle. Let me explain. In this system, you might take the elements, let's say the colors, the type, and let's get fun, the scent. And instead of being set in stone, like these are your typefaces, these are your colors, this is your scent, we'll put each one of those kind of on a scale and we'll give them a guiding principle. So as an example, maybe your colors are set in stone. The sliding scale is that big. You got 6 colors to choose from. But with typefaces, maybe the scale's a bit wider. Maybe you say, you can choose, I'm not even going to say which typefaces, just choose a typeface. But always have the guiding principle when you're choosing typefaces be old world heritage type of vibes. And then maybe for the scent, as an example, you'll always have a base note of amber, but each season, maybe you add a different top note to the scent. So it has somewhat of a sliding scale, but it will always be grounded by that base scent. And when you're choosing each season's scent, maybe you have the guiding principle of we will reference what's happening in film, or we will reference what's happening in fashion, or you understand where I'm going. With this type of branding, not only does each element in the toolkit need to be considered on a scale with a guiding principle, but the brand as a whole should also be considered on a scale. Think of it as 1 to 10. On a 1, when are the moments when this brand is more quiet and subtle? Maybe it's on a business card, on a social media icon. And the other end of the scale, when is this company going to be firing on all cylinders? Maybe it's at a festival. Maybe it's, they have their in-store flagship experience where everything is going on: sight, sound, smell, taste, colors, photography, product design, everything. And maybe you're somewhere in the middle. You're doing a Subway ad on one of those video screens where it's not going to be the craziest thing, but it's more of like a 5 on your scale. Now, like I said, this isn't necessarily the end-all be-all best way to brand. In fact, this type of branding can be very detrimental and very overwhelming unless the client has a significantly large budget, because this is a very complex system that takes a lot of time to work out, and also a very talented team of designers who can understand this complex brand system, who can skillfully know when to move this slider, when to move that slider, and how to stick to these guiding principles and making these things work in harmony without rules that are set in stone. The ideal client for this type of branding is somebody who places almost at a sacrosanct level design. These are industries like fashion, architecture, design itself, the music industry, maybe some tech companies that are real avant-garde. These are companies who inherently understand the super importance of design, and so do their audience. There you have it, the 4 levels of brand, from logo stamp to the Trinity branding to the kitchen sink branding to the variable brand systems. Now, how can you apply this to your design business? Remember, we want to master branding, but we might as well make money when we're doing it. If I wanted to get more freelance branding clients, I would set up my website according to this framework. Super simple. So a client could go to the website and see, oh, I got 4 options. I could get a logo. I could get a simple branding package, which consists of logo, color, and type. I could get a full branding package, which consists of or I could get the extra supreme, whatever you want to call it, double shiny, fancy branding package, which I got to call and set up a meeting and do a consultation to really understand if it's right for me. And again, I as a client will know very easily, okay, a logo's $1,000. The simple branding is $2,000. The full brand package is $5,000. Whatever it is, in the top tier, again, I'm going to have to set up a meeting and talk one-on-one with the designer to see if this is really a good fit for me. Now, if you watch this video and you're all jazzed about it, super excited, you want to apply what you have learned, but what is your first step? Next week, I'll be coming out with a video that talks about just that. How to go from absolute zero freelance to getting your first clients. What you need to set up and how I would set things up if I was going to do it today starting from zero. The link to that video will be in the description of this video and right here as soon as it is up. In the meantime, I'm Harbor with Extra Credit Design Club. If you like what you see, you can subscribe, and as always, I'll catch you in the next.